الله الرحمن الرحيم إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار واختلاف الليل والنهار والفلك التي تجري في البحر يرفع الناس نفس وأنزل الله من السماء مما من السماء ماء وبين السماء والأرض لآيات لقوم يعلمون صدق الله العظيم.
ورحمة الله وبركاته. Nanti sih, kan nggak.
Acara selanjutnya yaitu menyanyikan lagu Indonesia Raya yang dilanjutkan soal Indonesia. Kini silakan berhenti.
Nggak.
Kini silakan kembali. Acara selanjutnya yaitu Sofian oleh Persegi Promosi Arsitek. Kimia Teknologi STMT yang IPM. Tempat kami silakan. boleh karena kita di sektor juga terkoneksi oleh lembaga arsitek Malaysia. Aktual faktor, faktornya boleh diambil juga di program profesi arsitek atau di magister arsitek. Ada juga seperti itu, ya. Jika sudah tadi menempuh S1 yang ada S1 ini, jadi kalau agak serius menunjukkan lagu misalnya dan member bisa jadi nanti satu tahun lalu udah menunjukkan itu tradisi. Oke oke oke. Ini kan memang menunjukkan aku. Karena aku itu memang pilihannya dari atas bulan pada bulan lalu organisasinya besar katanya di sana. Pada hari ini adalah kata yang dilakukan menghadirkan desainer ya masukan dari kita. Ada yang tahu singkatan KM? Wah, oke, Anda sudah bisa berbatalak. Sudah tahu sekarang. Ya, Pak Sofian, Sibarani Sofian itu pernah saya juga. Nah, ini juga bisa menjadi salah satu alternatif ya untuk skema. Jadi kalau untuk kacang kan terlalu lemah gitu ya. Makanya adik mulai dari semester berapa? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 sudah ikut saya balik. Sehingga nanti nama Anda sudah tercantum di arasi lalu mahfud gitu ya. Wah ini keren ya. Nama-nama ini keren ya. Besok suatu saat bisa dipanggil ya dan akan bergabung dengan ini. Ada 3 waktu itu yang kami sampaikan kepada Pak Sebagai satu adalah jadi permasalahan orang ini sosok politik karena juga yang kedua adalah skema kota-kota kayak visi-visi capres yang satunya lagi IKM gitu kan kayak capres lagi pasti ini tidak mungkin nanti saya akan sering bertanya ini ada bisa diterapkan nanti ada banyak sekali mulai beberapa tahun lalu kita berdua sebenarnya ini kalau bermanfaat kan jadi 16 SKS dan 1 semester tidak dengan praktikum apalagi dengan KKL jadi mohon nanti bisa dicermati banyak hal-hal yang bisa diselesaikan teknis tapi harus dioptasi dari politis. Nah, arsitek kalau arsitek kita harus memahami seminggu yang lalu saya ikan di salon nanti punya minggu depan saya ke ikan lagi. Kalau di sini kan ada 1, 2, 3, 4 ada sekitar 8 atau 10 AC gitu ya. Di sana mungkin 50 meter itu ya kasih barangnya AC-nya sentral keren kan? Karena di ayo gas. Ada peta 104, ada peta 105. Ini saya upload di Facebook saya. Kalau apa kan tidak dipilih. Sebelumnya saya ada apa? Ini jadi itu sempat jadi surat 16 dengan mungkin merapi video aja. Nah, ini Anda sudah akan bisa lihat dari CV besarnya 6.000 hektar, kemudian dari 1.800 hektar, bagaimana tanggung jawab sosial yang bisa diberikan oleh seorang arsitek, seorang desainer, atau seorang urbanis. Sekali lagi, terima kasih Pak Sibarani Sofian dan juga Bapak yang lain yang sudah hadir, sudah yang ada di forum segmen yang spesifik. Memang tidak mengagum gitu ya, yang fokus di sini. Karena ini masalah bangsa, apalagi ini sirekam beres dan jadi harus ya kita bukan Selamat baca. Terima kasih. Yang banyak. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Baik, kami mengundang kembali Bapak Haji untuk menyerahkan perangkat yang kemenangan dari Asisten UI kepada Bapak Sibarani Sofian.
Oh iya.
Kita akan tinggal momen undian dulu. 1, 2, 3. Ya, terima kasih Bapak Haji. Memasuki acara inti Arsitek tahun 19 ini, kali ini Arsitek tahun seri 19 mengusung tema Urban Design dengan Nusantara Capital City dengan menghadirkan narasumber yaitu Bapak Sibarani Sofian, MUDD B.Arch, LEDAP, selaku urban designer dan arsitek yang merancang urban design pada kawasan ibu kota Nusantara atau IKN. Langsung saja kita sambut Bapak Sibarani Sofian dan penyelenggara kita, Bapak Dr. Insinyur Adik Usman MSc. Wakil Ketua,
Kesibukan.
Assalamualaikum. Saya selalu Sibarani. Terima kasih banyak. Ini kalau
Tidak bebas.
ini legasi kita tidak kita. Sudah sampaikan ya bahwa purpose-nya adalah IKN. Jadi penting sekali untuk melihat bagaimana sebenarnya besar penting ada di bawah sebenarnya. Saya sendiri baru sekali IKN sama fotonya ya. Saya dalam yang saya di KPI Indonesia kemasan di depan. Ya sebenarnya satu yang menarik kalau sini tidak perlu dibacakan ya. Di sini juga ada ya Pak Sibarani B.Arch dari DPW ST dari DPW, kemudian MPD-nya Master of Development and Design itu dari mana sih? Yusuf kan? Karena saya nggak dikasih ke CD-nya dan saya udah minta setting nggak sempat juga saya baca. Jadi kurang lebih itu. Jadi yang paling keren sebenarnya dia adalah arsitek dari ibu kota Nusantara dan keren banget dan untuk tangan dong. Itu mungkin sebenarnya ya ibu kota di tempatnya yang berbeda ya sangat-sangat challenging dan beberapa kota semua saya pikir juga apa implementasi dari kota yang dibikin. Salah satunya di Trondheim itu juga satu bukan ibu kota tapi itu juga banyak masalah juga di sana. Salah satunya misalnya kalau naik sepeda, meskipun sepeda yang gratis itu kalau pagi pakai becak ke bawah, sorenya bisa ngangkut ke atas karena tidak rata. Tadi saya sendiri baru sekali sampai ke sana, keluarga dari kesempatan mungkin punya Pak Haji untuk ke sana. Tapi satu yang penting sebenarnya adalah ini saya ada pertanyaan, ada dua pertanyaan penting yang mungkin di luar materi, tapi mungkin cukup penting untuk di-share. Kebetulan di kelas kami, mungkin di semua kelas ya, sekarang kita coba untuk gagas ya, tapi sesuatu di masa depan yang mungkin bisa menjadi solusi untuk persoalan di masa depan. Masing-masing pun pendekatannya itu berbeda. Tapi khusus di kelas saya minta untuk spesifik melihat tidak ada kesan bentuknya yang penting, tapi ada implikasi negatifnya. Nah, belum banyak yang berani mengungkap implikasi negatif dari pembangunan Nusantara. Saya rasa yang paling tahu video ini ya. Dan nanti kita mendengar langsung. Bukan apa? Bukan mau mencari masalahnya, tapi sebenarnya kita diminta untuk mikir bagaimana solusi. Kalau saya punya kontradiksi untuk menghasilkan integrated solution. Itu sebenarnya teman-teman di kelas saya terutama kita minta ke ekspor apa sih indikasi negatif dari desain di tempat yang berbuka dan seterusnya masih rentan dan seterusnya untuk kemudian barangkali kita bisa berkontribusi untuk berkembang besar. Kemudian yang kedua itu kita juga tadi yaitu pabrikan itu meminta saya untuk awal atau menggunakan masker S1 untuk berdesain. Waktu saya ketemu dengan teman dari India mereka heran satu ya. Nah kita ingin dikerjain kira-kira apa tantangannya kalau kita membuat program satu untuk berdesain karena mungkin tidak banyak yang membuat itu dan kalau kita lihat jumlah kota kita kalau kita termasuk orang sampai 500 itu cepat sekali ya sih. Sehingga mungkin itu akan jadi satu dan yang ketiga pertanyaan ketiga sebenarnya pertanyaan terkait dengan itu. Baik, mungkin untuk mengambil waktu yang tidak terlalu banyak, karena sebentar lagi sudah mau cabut lagi ke tempat yang lain. Saya persilakan Pak Sibarani untuk bisa menyampaikan. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Saya izin mungkin berdiri aja, Mas. Boleh di sini? Sorry Mas, boleh di sini aja nggak? Sorry nih, ini supaya berfoto. Mungkin izin kan berdiri. Kalau untuk lebih jalan-jalan lebih enak. Kebetulan saya baru tiba tadi pagi, jam 4 pagi saya sedang pun nggak sempat tidur dulu ya. Jadi mungkin agak-agak offline dikit ya teman-teman. And I was told that we have two international students. Raise your hand. One and two, yeah? Okay. So for the purpose of the two gentlemen and three ladies here, I'm gonna use English. Is that okay? English, yeah? Okay. So toleransi solidar buat kita yang tidak berbahasa Inggris ya. Okay. Thank you very much, Mark, and also for all the distinguished lecturer here, esteemed students of UII. My name is Sofian. How are you today? You good? This is the tough time of the day. After lunch, you all already have lunch. All good? How many of you in the undergraduate? S1? Are you sure? Okay, now I change the question. How many of you is already in master's degree? S2? Only one? Then who's not raising up your hand? Who are you guys? Sisanya apa? S1, S2, dia yang lagi profesional. Okay, I hope many of you today already have at least some basic knowledge about design. And I'm standing here in front of you also as the president of architecture, Ikatan Architect Nusantara, Urban Design Institute or Urban Design Association of Indonesia. And some of you here, probably some of the lecturer here is also a member. How many of you know our urban design as a profession? Nobody know? Are you sure? Everything that we're going to talk about is urban design, no? You know about urban design, right? Raise your hand, raise your hand. Siapa yang tahu tentang urban design? So, what do you think about urban design?
What I know is about this actual city, and in my experience, the strategy for architects, like in one part, in urban design, and another, and also about it after graduation and urban design.
Do you have planning school in your hours? There is a planning, yeah? Nothing. Okay, thank you very much. Very good. I hope more of you interact and talk. This is a casual class. I hope. So if you have any question, you have any burning desire to know anything, let me know. So I'm going to try to fill the next 1 hour about a little bit of my journey on how we are selected as a winner of the urban design of the capital city of Indonesia. And there are two questions just now raised. I'm going to try to address as much as I can. In fact, the next following things that I'm going to talk about is basically the challenge of how we can we approach the capital city design and how to guide future. That's probably my point of discussion today. Kurang tetap sehat di sini. Okay. Okay, so for all of you, probably you know where Kalimantan is, yeah? But for our guests, our country's capital city. This is the whole country of Indonesia. More than 50% of the people is living here. Yet this is only 19% of our territory of Indonesia. So more than 50% of the people of our country of 287 million people only happen in this one island. And the rest of the island are very is is really not distributed evenly. So our government decided to move from East Kalimantan is a geopolitical decision by our president Widodo to put the geopolitical center of Indonesia right in the middle of it. Where you get is to the east, to the west, to the north, and south is roughly in that kind of synchronization. It's also a symbol of our movement of philosophical and paradigm shift. Because for all the 73 years of independence before them, 74, um, the mindset is very Java centric. It means everything is going through Java. Java, even some say our president has to be Japanese. Wahid. So we try to break this mentality of being Java-centric into Indonesian-centric. So moving into the capital city in this Kalimantan is a political decision that our government already made since 2019. And at that time, when we got the brief of the state design vision, it's based on three pillars. One is the national identity, is the expression of our national identity. The second one is sustainability, be it in the social, economic, and environmental keberlanjutan ya. Yang pertama adalah pride of the nation. It needs to be reflected Indonesia first before it goes to the international. That's the first one. So it needs to feel, it needs to face, it needs to evoke our emotion, being Indonesian. And the third one is the smart, modern, international standard city. So it needs to be utopian, it needs to be futuristic and future embracing. And it is a representation of the nation advanced society. Indonesia Maju 2045. So it's not only a physical shift. So in the next one, you will see is not only a symbol of the location of the physical being, but it's also representation of the national progress, realization of the economic and equity, justice, and the vision of the advance Indonesia. We are selected. He made a speech in Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. Those are the keywords: smart metropolis, 80% renewable energy, zero emission city, using the best technology and innovation, a low carbon efficient and eco-friendly city, and embedded into that speech certain keywords like 2 degree temperature reduction, 100% alternative energy, 70% green area, net zero emission, 10 city, 80% public transport. How many of you understand all these numbers? Can somebody contribute to the discussion? What is the normal green area in the city that you know? Yuk. Biasanya kota itu punya hijaunya berapa persen sih? Less than 20%. Siapa yang tahu? Who's from Jakarta? Ayo, siapa yang dari Jakarta? Oke, open space di Jakarta ada berapa? Yes, take a number.
There are quite a lot of green space, more than more than it is here. And as far as I know, green space that requires more than 3 years. I don't remember how much is the main number, but he lived like 900 squares per
Yeah.
person.
That's the nominal number of square footage, yeah. But do you know the percentage roughly? You don't know? Okay, let me help you. It's 9.6% of Jakarta. And more than half of that 9.6% of Jakarta is actually graveyard, kuburan. Jadi kalau nggak dihitung kuburannya, hanya 4,8% di Jakarta. So, this one is 70. And percentage can be one single of pizza. 70%, it means there are more green than the developed areas. It means we are surrounded by green like crazy. And then 10-minute city. How many of you know the 10-minute city or 15-minute city? And who came up with the number? If you know this, the panitia will give you prize, right? Ada hadiah katanya? Ada door prize? Okay. Who's among you know 15-minute city theory? Yep. 15-minute city, you get prize. Okay. And if you can name who came up with that number, that name, that terms, I'll give you prize. As far as remember, 15-minute city means as far as remember, clean means a city that is accessible. Everything is simple, less than 15 minutes, more than 15 minutes. Ours is accessible for now. And how much more than that? Okay. Who has one let me give you this consumption. Well, Olivia can help to give him a reward. Okay, that's good. So, how many of you walk 15 minutes to get your basic necessity? Nobody? Everybody pakai motor and naik mobil? Nobody walk? Really? I thought Jakarta is a better city than Jakarta. Jakarta nobody walk, I know. But here, I hope you walk. But can you walk in 10 minutes and you get, okay, then, yeah, I am build a story. This one is 10 minutes, even shorter. So this is not an easy number to deal with, and this is already designed on issues that I'm talking about. So this city is not any nowhere in the that I know that city that can behave like this. Some area of the city, for example, 80% public transport, 80% public transport. 10 of you here, how many of you take public transport? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Raise your hand. Public transport. Public transport? No, 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 no. One. Only one. So this is 10% public transport. So to live in Italy, 8 of you have to take public transport, 2 of you take motorcycle. And it means you are a high rank official of my division. Eselon 1 atau dirjen lah, minimal ya. Okay, so this is not the same. Like in Jakarta is about 16%. Singapore is about 56%. Downtown Tokyo is 76%. The only 80% is probably somewhere in the small city, in the old medieval buildings where cars cannot go in because it's too small. It means you have to walk everywhere. So in a nutshell, that was the TOR ya, the orangnya pada saat saya belajar itu biasanya seperti itu, we will give it a talk like that. So we came up with the so we came up with Nagara Lima Nusa, and probably the Indonesian know. This is not really uh, rocket science here. I'm not trying to do Sanskrit word about this. Nagara means the conflict, the presence of the conflict. It's not even Sanskrit, yeah. Rimba means forest. Nusa means archipelago. So the three words come together is city and forest archipelago, which brought the meaning of a city that is built on wisdom of local Indonesian culture. Why Indonesian? Because Nusa is something that is close to our heart. Now it's called Nusantara. Everybody in Indonesia can relate to that because we are archipelagic culture. We are some of the largest countries in the world. Only as of last month, I thought we are the largest. We have 17,000 islands, right? You know, is there not a country that has one that has one island in Indonesia? That's the second prize in the individual lunchbox. Which one? Norway. Norway has more islands, but most of the island is unoccupied. It's actually more, I don't know, penguin living there. Maybe you can invite me to that. So we are Indonesian, we are Nusantara, we are Pachi people. The narrative of that is basically what I can relate to, what is more uh, speech of Elias, of how to connect nature and culture and anthropocentrism as the new sort of level of civilization in geological terms, that we are the people of the earth that is now basically not going down. We are destroying our earth, and we really try to seek a balance between how humans live in nature. So the narrative is reinforced at a very It's free. This is something that I want to also discuss. It's not city in the garden yet. You know the garden city theory and Renaissance power in the London, in UK, in the industrial civilization era, or Singapore is also garden in the city or city garden. No, it's not garden. In the garden, you can find butterfly, you can find tupai and squirrels. In the forest, you find crocodile, you find monkeys, you find snakes, you find biawak, you also find buaya. Not only buaya, sungai, ya, buaya darat. So it's actually really trying, like, this is the inspiration that we got. And why we came up with this non-thing. We really need to challenge and we really want to invite the thinking of how human can relate to the nature and how the city can really even mimic the forest. This is never been done before. The only place probably before the past time was Brasilia, moving the capital city in the forest. But there isn't any narrative about forest city. Yeah. Imagine how to live side by side with the mountain. How to live side by side wilderness. This morning, the speech was talking about rewilding the living condition. Even rewilding your thinking, your thought. Ini yang kalau bahasanya tidak biarkan pikiran kamu gila, gitu ya. Think about crazy ideas. So that was the invitation back then. Scorching the earth, we are disturbing, we are giving a lot of bad influence to the nature. Although in reality, I can explain to you later on, is simply not really the case. And can you guess what is these 4 pictures? Anybody following the time from the very beginning? And also these pictures on the right, top right, and bottom right, and the left also. Anybody can answer? And yes? No? Okay. The picture on the left is the first design by the Ministry of Public Works before the competition. At that time, Pak Jokowi Widodo all 3 ministers. B.Arch Minister Pak Basuki, Pak Soeharto Monoarfa, the Minister of Governance, the planning department, and planning ministers. The third one is Sibarani APR. Sofian yang 3 of them was given the task. I want to build a capital city. You should do something, study about. So each of them come up with something, but the original design of the capital city based on diagram, I suppose, is what it looks very flat. In reality, the capital city is not flat. And the one on the left is given, the thing is being done without even having a location. It's a cabinet location. And then all the architects at the time was scratching their head. It looks very 1990s, right? Today, it looks very much like a Pentagon. It looks like a military town, don't you think? And with the star, 5 star like that, inverted, anagram, right? Is it anagram or some kind of like satellite? It's only one question. Why it has to be like that? And then at the end there was a special promotion in India saying that can we invite the professional to do it? More architects, more planners, more urban designers to participate in this in terms of in the form of competition. So there it was. The top right and the bottom right is actually the second scheme, the second linear scheme. We got the first one, that's the second one. The third one is, and the bottom one is the third one. So this is the time for me to drag it a little bit there. Top right is actually collaboration of Cornell University with some
company in China and Universitas di Semarang apa ya Pak ya? Bukan Undip. Satu lagi yang Katolik. Sugio Pranoto. Ya, oke. Tapi ada Cornellnya loh. There is a Cornell University there. And the bottom right is associated with Harvard University. But who's the winner? Coming from ITB saja, Indonesia National. So no help from foreign universities or anybody. So bangga ya, produk nasional asli. Kita nomor 1, nomor 2 Harvard, nomor 2 Cornell, nomor 3 Harvard. Although saya master degree-nya di New South Wales sih. Okay, but what can you tell about number 2 and number 3 and number 1? Anybody want to give some opinion? Can you observe? Can you suspect? What is the difference? TOR-nya sama loh. The brief is the same. Can you point out what is? This is like a game, guys. Find the difference between 1, 2, and 3. This one is huge difference. Any observation? Cannot find? Ada yang mau? Nah, kita tembak aja deh. Oh, bahasa Indonesia boleh.
Mungkin perbedaan dari nomor 1 sama nomor 3 ya Pak ya? Kalau untuk di nomor 1 sama nomor 2 itu kan tidak konteks sama daerah Kalimantan yang berbukit. Jadinya lebih didesain hanya seperti flat. Untuk di nomor 3 sama nomor yang yang terakhir menang itu lebih kontekstual dengan iklim dan lingkungannya.
Thank you. So if you notice, good observation, the one on the top right, kanan atas, flat, have river, high rise, right? The one on the bottom is probably undulating, have a river, but very low rise. This design is in between. So this is a lesson that I can relate to you, all of you. Architecture, briefnya sama, same brief, usually end up with the same volume or the same shape. The design can be different, but the density, ketinggiannya, ukurannya, dimensinya biasanya sama. In the city planning, same brief can end up with very different. So it means the competition is so open that it can really go for very different solution. Now, can you tell which one that is actually better solution? And why the judge select my scheme compared to the other scheme? Because the rendering looks better, probably. Ngaku ya, saya ngaku, I confess. I was in international company called K.H.A for 11 years. Yeah. And primarily I spent my time outside. More than half of that 11 years, I was in China and Hong Kong, in India, in Singapore, and doing a lot of projects also in Malaysia. And my specialization is competition. So when we did the project back then, that rendering was done in 3 days. 3 hari 6.000 hektar. And the only company on earth that can do that is in China. Indonesia teman-teman kita gak sanggup, dan kita hanya punya 3 hari karena kita pindah, we change location on the very last minute. As usual, when architects is always like that, right? We are procrastinate, we never settle for final, like the first week, this is my design. No, we waited until the very last 2 weeks, we changed location. We changed location because all of us say that, this is not good, this is not good. I want to see the ocean, I want to see the access to the bridge. Then we changed location, we only left 3 days for the renderer. But we pay a very healthy fee for the Chinese consultant to do this rendering. So maybe the rendering helps to get us win the job. But this one is also not bad, actually. So the point is, there are many options in relating to the brief. It doesn't mean it's only one solution. This one can be right too, I don't know. The other one on the top also can be right. We don't know. But our scheme is more about doing a medium density, and I explained to you why we choose medium density over the high density or low density. Okay, I just explained a bit. I need to speed up a bit. For those who knows IKN, is 240,000 hectares. It's the size of Jabodetabek, Jakarta, Bogor, Depok, Tangerang, Bekasi. There are many cities. Similarly, in IKN, we also have 9 cities. But the very big difference is Jabodetabek has about 36 million people in total, including Jakarta. Here, we only have up to 2 million. If we combine Balikpapan and Samarinda, it becomes almost 4 million. Very different with Jakarta and Jabodetabek. 4 million versus 34 million, very different. So we are not building Jakarta here. We are building multiple cities, government center, economic center, health services, entertainment, education, innovation, agriculture, farming, and high-tech industry in multiple locations. And somebody may probably ask, what is this? Why we don't build in here? Why we don't build in there? This one is mostly an area of mangrove or Teluk Balikpapan. This area, for those whose father in the Suharto time, that area called Bukit Suharto, a protected forest that cannot be touched. It's a national forest. It means we cannot touch it. It means 70% of the whole area, mostly, is actually located here. This area on the red is the area that you can build, but you still have to look into deeper area of that. So my primary job is only doing the first city, which is WP1, yeah. We're planning area number 1, which is the government center only. And it's already in the size of 6,000 hectares. And 6,000 hectares is the scale of Bumi Serpong Damai. Sorry, I cannot relate anywhere in Yogyakarta that is 6,000 hectares. And the whole red area in here is 56,000 hectares. Is exactly the size of Jakarta. Jakarta is 59,000 hectares. This is the size of Jakarta. So for those who know Jakarta, this could be your Jakarta Utara, this could be your Jakarta Selatan, this could be your Jakarta Barat, Jakarta Timur. The whole city has 11 million. In here, we only have about 1.8. So it's very tiny. The people is not that big, so we don't need to be high-rise like the first scheme, or like the other page. Yeah. Now, I want you to spend a little bit more time on this page. Remember the speech by the president? Apparently, it's not only a speech. Oh, sorry. I moved this one. Yeah, I want you to spend on this one. Apparently, it's not only a speech. It become law. If you want to open Perpres 63 2021 about IKN, this KPI is there. So it's a mandate by law to be 10-minute city into basic necessity, to have 70% open space, to have 80% of the public transport in the city, to have 100% alternative energy, to have 100% net zero emission, to reduce the temperature by 2 degrees. Can you imagine a city that has all this KPI? You know KPI, right? Key performance indicator. I'm going to talk about performance-based also in my lecture. There's no place on earth that can perform like this. Not Singapore, not Tokyo, not New York, not London, not even Jakarta or even Yogyakarta. So, all these KPI, not only it's impossible to find an example, we also have to find what the urban form that looks like this. Can you see the contradiction or not? What is the problem with all these numbers? What is the implication if in here, this room, I can only have 30% of you staying in this room? 30%. 70% you are out, going out. But within that 30%, I have to be able to reach each other in 10 minutes. It means in 30%, 70% is open, nothing in between, there's nobody in here, but yet I have to be able to talk to each other very quickly in 10 minutes. Can you imagine the problem, yeah? It's like city, putting a people scattered around greenery, and yet they have to be close to each other because in 10 minutes they have to meet, they have to go to the shop, they have to be able to take public transport. So that is a problem, right? Because 10-minute city in Paris, you can see how much open space in Paris. They are very closely located together and they are flat. Yeah. So this KPI, honestly, giving me a lot of headache. And guess what? I have to deal with this in 2020 March. That's when the first time we came back with the brief. Congratulations, you are selected. Now go and work. It was January. And in February, yeah, we do something here and there. We go to the site. In March, suddenly, what happened in March 2020? COVID. So I don't have time to talk to everyone here. I cannot even discuss with everyone. This is like a teka-teki silang. It's like a puzzle word, crossword puzzle. I don't have any answer to that. And yet I have to come up with a solution. And to make it worse, at that time, we thought the location, if you can notice, this is the first rendering, yeah? We call it Nagara Rimba Nusa because it should be a form of archipelago. It looks like on one island, another island in here. It's also near to the water, and it's also a flat area. The area in here is flat. By March 2020, or probably February, Pak Presiden Joko Widodo came twice to the location. And both of the occasion, he came with helicopter. Do you know what it means when you come from helicopter? He's coming to the top of this hill, and he looked at the bridge, and he said, "It's a nice bridge, I want to see the bridge." Here, you cannot see the bridge because it's flat. The elevation of this is not more than 20 meters above the sea level. In here, if you look at the location, original location, which is here, we are here. This one is used to be here. We have to move up 4.5 kilometers to the hill. We have to go move the city uphill. That's why, for those who already come to IKN, it looks very undulating because our president came by helicopters. looking at the hill on the very high level, which is plus 90. So this is plus 25, this is plus 90. There are 65-meter difference of elevation on that area alone. So imagine my COVID quarantine time feels like I have to deal with all these changes, and then like you make an impossible city, right? So this is the thesis of my discussion. There are two, and if we can have time, probably three. How to interpret the vision, the goals, and the targets. How to respond to nature and the context. What will be the model for urban development if IKN? How can we meet all the KPI, although it's contradictory? I come back to the contradiction. If you want to have a closely located for 10 minutes and efficiency of public transport, you cannot have more open space. If you want to have more open space, you're bound to be disconnected or segmented, right? So all this contradiction is the question that I have to answer. And then to make it worse, that's the landing station of the Pak Presiden. That's Pak Jokowi here. This is all the minister. This is Ibu Dirjen. This is Pak Menteri, Pak Basuki, and he's pointing to this hill. That's my palace. Because from there, I can see Jembatan Balang is actually fakely located there. And this elevation is 110. The helipad is at 110. The palace is at 90. The whole area here is like a bulldog. You know the skin of the bulldog? Kriwilan, bumps, like crazy. Every 100 meter, you go 30 meter or 30 meter up or 20 meter down. Everywhere. So, we end up with a solution that is, first, we come back to our credo that we have to respond to nature. We have to be sensitive to the environment. How? We have to be able to at least identify the high points and the low points. So never in the history of the urban planning, we start with scratch. Only the developer has done that. BSD done that. Maybe Ciputra has done that. But our government never built a single town from scratch, this scale. We have done a little bit of pusat kabupaten or regency center or pusat kota gitu ya. Delta Mas is actually the pusat pemerintahan or the government center of Kabupaten Bekasi. Or maybe in Ternate, I heard ya Pak ya, there is some new city, but it's not 6,000 hectares. This is the first time we painfully identify the main river, the secondary river, the tertiary river, even to the four category of what we call the vein atau serabut sungai. Doesn't have any water, but it is an area that we don't touch. And that also have consequence to the road system. We cannot draw straight lines. We can, but we're forcing it. So most of the road are wiggly like this. Even this road right now is already become very wrinkly now. Why? Because every time you go straight line, you hit the hill, you have to go around the hill. You cannot cut the hill. If you go down too deep, you have to build a bridge. So you want to, if you really want to avoid unnecessary cut and fill on this. That's why the location, the road system is very undulating. But then, what is a capital city without the structure? We need to have a structures. We start to have at least the axis, because the president already pointed this location. He was here during the helicopter ride, and he looked down to here. And then we have to do an axis, because in our Nagara Rimba Nusa scheme, one of our features is the axis. And if you can see this tradition of capital city, all over the world, it has axis. But this is not copying from outside. We, in this even particular city, we have a philosophical axis from Merapi to Kraton and even to the Southern Sea, Laut Selatan. Bali also have that in the Mount Agung. Bandung also have that in Tangkuban Perahu. In many various cities of Indonesia, this is a relationship between man, nature, and the higher being. We call it God, but some people think that not only necessarily God, because in the past, it wasn't really the God, it's also the element of force of nature that you cannot control, something that is higher, beyond human, that really needs to be acknowledged. Although in our capital city, we don't have mountain, but we have the hill behind us, which is an elevation of 200. So we built one location we already know. Pak Presiden want the palace to be there. We relate it to the ocean. This is the Teluk Balikpapan. This one is actually a wetland, and anything in between is where man supposed to come in between of nature and God and really try to set a balance between how man treat nature and how men relate to the God. So that's the axis that we want to build. And then we add the triumvirate, the tripartite of the government, the executive, the legislative, and the judicative. So we have the DPRD here, we have also the MK here, this is the presidential office. Now, we start to define where to build the city, because we can have a choice of filling everything to make it even more connected. Remember, we need to make it 10 minutes, right? By connecting all this area to be a development area, but at that time we choose to allow what we call the nature corridor, ecology, water and animal corridor to come. Because remember, we need to be side by side with the snakes, we need to be side by side with the monkey, we need to be side by side with the biawak. Do you want to be too close to them? Maybe not, right? So we add at least 100-meter wide corridor to allow the animal to not to be disturbed by us. By right, it should be 300 meters, but we don't have the space. We need to build town. We need to build 300,000 in this only 30% of the very precious area to build. And not to mention, the area is very undulating. So a lot of the area cannot be built. And remember, we also try to remember the first nerve system of the water. We painfully identify this area that we don't build. In city of Jakarta, even probably Yogyakarta, you can only have probably the primary and the secondary river. The tertiary and the fourth level is usually gone. Usually we fill it up and then we use irrigation channel. Jakarta lost their tertiary river since 1970s or 1980s. I don't know about Yogyakarta. Bali is already losing that. From here, we define and protect even the fourth level of river. Dia bilangnya Sungai Ordo 4. Kalau teman-teman infrastructure, the infrastructure friends talk about river level order 1, order 2, order 3, and order 4. Order 4 is only 30-meter wide. And we identify 30-meter corridor in this area of development, which you will later on will see how crazy we are doing that, because it drives us nuts also doing that. But remember, we have to do 30% of developed area and 70% of green area. The 70% is adding up by the big corridor of the nature and also the small little corridor of what we call the green and the blue fingers. And remember, there's another KPI about 2 degrees Celsius. Can you guess what is the relationship between the 2 degrees Celsius with these green fingers? And also the 10-minute city, because the 10-minute city also suggests that you also have to achieve not only Indomaret, we also have to go to the park, right? So, can anybody guess the relationship between the reduction of the temperature with this network of finger? Kira-kira ada yang ide? Saya kasih USB deh. USB isinya file presentasi saya. Nggak ada ya? Okay, so these fingers is the manifestation of our archipelago idea. When you are in the island, what do you feel? When you are on the coast of the island, in the beach, what do you feel in the first place? Breeze. Breeze, right? Yes, the winds. So if we surround our yellow is the development area, with a lot of this green, imagine the green also carry oxygen, carry the water, and also allow the breeze to flow. So it helped to ventilate the city in the hope of reducing the temperature by 2 degrees. I cannot answer exactly 2 degrees or not. I cannot really tell whether it's going to be, because this temperature can be 40 degrees Celsius as we speak now. With the additional building, it could be even 42. We don't know. But with this system of the what we call the green fingers, hopefully it can drop the temperature by at least 2 degrees. And then the next move is the mixed-use diversity. This is what we call a land use that is mixed. Usually in the planning, in the zoning, they call it the zonation, ya, zonasi, teknik zonasi di PWK. We separate between the living, which is the yellow, and the working. Working is usually far away. We live, like for example, work in Jakarta, but live in Bogor, live in Depok, live in Serpong. In here, this is the palace. This is the government center. The yellow one is really next to each other. This is something that you notice in all capital city in the world. The first criticism of the capital city is about how soulless the city is. If you go to Canberra, boring. It's like nobody there, especially after the office hours. All the government people move out from the government precinct and the area become dead. You go to Putrajaya, very also empty during the day, during the night time. The living place is busy, but the government center is very empty. So in here, we try to mix, and we also try to break the tradition of not having residential too close to the government center, because the government center usually have a lot of restriction. Oh, you cannot go to the government center because we have a lot of secrets, we have a lot of safety issues, we don't want you near to us. Because I'm not from the government, so I take the liberty of mixing them, so you have houses near your ministry office. How about that? And now they are building it, so I don't know whether they realize it or not. That actually I'm mixing the residential more. So, but then it's for a reasonable purpose of trying to bring life to the area that is very government-centric. All the purple is government. The yellow is residential. This one is a diplomatic area. So even the diplomatic area is surrounded by residential. So you're going to have a very mixed and diverse. So in the hope, if you live here, in 10 minutes by pedestrian, you can walk around there. But 10 minutes by bus, you can go around there. So it's next to each other, not too far. Hopefully by 10 minutes, you can go from office to your home, or vice versa, or if you are from here, you are near to the commercial center. And this is where the contradiction that I was talking about, 70% green area, 10-minute basic facility, 500-meter walking distance to transit, 80% public transport model share by 2045. How can you do that if you have 70% of green area, but then it's so separated, right? So we came up with this idea of striking a balance between the density and the optimal walking distance by transit. So we really try to put a lot of emphasis on public transport. So we put in the busway system that really go to all as area of the living area and the working area. And then we put the transit nodes. This is where the bus stop. There are hundreds of bus stops in the capital city. And each of the bus stop will have a 10-minute city radius. It's walkable. The 10-minute city in capital city, in Jakarta, in the flat area or in Yogyakarta, 10 minutes, how far you can go? 10 menit jalan lurus dari sini keluar, kira-kira nyampainya berapa puluh meter, berapa ratus meter? How many meter you can go? Setengah kilo, ya, 400, 500. But in our capital city that is undulating like crazy, we can only walk 200 meters. So the radius become very constricted. It means we have to have more public transport points. How to make it work also with the density? In the principle of the transit-oriented development, you densify around the public transport. So you put more people near transit than if they are far away from the transit. So it means you cannot make it suburbia. Remember the third winning options? The third winner is very flat, right? It's like 2-story, 3-story all over the place. We cannot do that because we need to build density. It's as simple as 300,000 people divided by 1,200 hectares of land, which is end up with somewhere around 150 to 200 people per hectares. And if you Google it, 150 people per hectares, what will be the building solution? Is about 8 to 12-story building. So we are building density around the transit, and we call it 10 minutes clusters or livable clusters that allow the people to walk more, bicycle more, use public transport, and then car at the very last of it. And then we have to also connect between the bus station to the living area, to the working area, to the mixed-use area by using also direct connection of pedestrian bridges because the area is very undulating. Just to add to the third vision, the third pillars of the vision, you have to be smart. We cannot really show too much of this, but I think the discussion this morning also talking about integrating the platform of the commanding the city or controlling the city using an integrated, almost like a BIM, but in the city level. So we call it not BIM, but probably CIM, City Integrated Model. Yeah, because it needs to be big. It needs to be the whole city. It needs to be almost what we call digital twin. In Singapore, they already start to mirror their city, put it in the model, and see the performance of each of the area of the city, and then monitoring it from whatever that they have. In here, we don't have the city. We are building the city. It means we have to start very early with putting all into the digital platform and making sure that every single movement that we have is recorded, is integrated in the platform. The performance of the building, the performance of the water, the performance of the infrastructure, the energy, the waste is all monitored and also controlled from one point of location. Especially the transportation system, because this is where, if you realize, our KPI is translated based on movement of the people by public transport, yeah? If it's made by public transport, it means it needs to be reliable. What is the bad thing about our public transport? Naik angkot tuh malasnya apa sih? Penuh, panas, unpredictable. You wait, you miss the first bus, you have to wait for 20 more minutes. You can open Gojek, in 5 minutes Gojek can take you to the next place, right? So, in order for the public transport to work, it needs to be smart. It needs to be on the platform that you can really know how many people is waiting and whether the bus needs to be deployed faster or not. They have to be smart enough to anticipate the needs of the people and sending the troops of the public transport where they are needed. Because that's the age of the smart city in the future. You just don't let the car just move around endlessly without knowing how many people is going to use or not. If everybody using apps and they start to say, I need the bus in this location, there are more people, especially they can learn, they have a machine learning to know the pattern every day, like, oh, the government people in this block usually come from 7 to 7:30, and they will leave around, back again to the office, from their offices about 5 o'clock. The bus system can be adjusting to that requirement. So that's the age of our capital city in the future. So smart forest city, archipelago-based future city model as a transformation and symbol of civilization advancement of Indonesia. Now, udah bosan? Capek? Masih kuat lagi untuk materi kedua. Ini 16 SKS dalam 2 jam nih, dalam 1 jam. Ya, okay. Just now we talk about the big scale. Now let's talk about the building blocks, something that relates to architecture a bit more. How to design a sustainable urban form that really push the thinking forward. Even the word of biomimicry and biophilia is already coming. This is what we call the nature-based solution approach to the city and to the architecture that really try to be inspired by the forest. So not only the park, we're talking about forest. It means it has big trees, it has small trees, it has monkeys, it has birds, it has squirrels, it has the snakes, and we also have the system of buttress roots, forest floor, understory, canopy, and emergence. What we try to push forward at that time, although the implementation may not be like that, yeah, but that's the challenge, is to really try to emulate the nature into the city fabric. Try to see the tower of the building as if it is a trees. Looking at the people as if they are the monkeys and the squirrels. How to move from one to another. Does monkey go down to the bottom of the building and then check by the satpam and go out and then go to the other one? After you check from one building to another one, they go from one building to another by swinging from one tower to another. Why not we create bridges between the building so I can connect from this building to the next building without even going down to the ground floor? Break that boundary. Add more solar panel in every rooftop of the building as if the emergence of the tall trees. This is where the biggest trees, because they have the biggest capacity to absorb the sun energy. This is the trunks. The trunks take all the water, the nutrient, the sathara from the ground very efficiently. Can we make a very efficient vertical core of the building that can not only take people, but can take also water, can take energy, can take information, can take logistic. Goods can be transferred from top to the bottom. The bottom of the forest is where the most diverse. The forest diversity index is not, they are diverse on the top. They are the most diverse at the bottom. The more species located at the bottom of the forest, not in the middle or the upper. Yeah? So can we bring more people, more activity at the ground level, and also allow the water, the wind, the animal to move freely from one place to another? And yet, it also, the root doesn't care whether you are on the hill, it doesn't care whether you are on the slope, it doesn't care whether you are on the water. It grows, it adapts, it connects from one to another. So why don't we adapt to this contour by creating a multiple layer of pedestrian connection that can connect from one to another directly, but also can help to cater people from one place to another, although they have to go up and down. And this is not the first time also the Indonesian in the past also adapt to that. This is the Rumah Panjang Kalimantan. But orang Padang also have this. Aceh also have this. Toraja also have this. It's our Nusantara architecture. Our past vernacular wisdom of architecture gave us the clue on how to build that has response to the nature, allowing the man to live on the safe ground and the animal and the nature to also occupy the bottom by using stilts. So what we can do, we can also mimic using stilts, so we have less impact to the ground, less building footprint, but then we float, allowing the wind and the water to pass through, allowing also the temperature to go down. So here's some of the, I'm going to tell to you about the first block of the building in the capital city, which is the ministry building, where we have these 5 principles. First, we do the ministry building that adaptive to the contour and multi-access. So you look at all the building here has to build on the slope. Yeah, we use stilts. We build on the slope. We allow the corridor. Remember the finger, the green finger, passing through the blocks. This is where the water, the animal, the wind to pass through. If we lift up the building using the pilotis, we call it pilotis, yeah? Then the wind can move freely from one area to another. So the building is not like a typical shopping mall where you isolate your facade and put all the air conditioning. So you allow the breeze to come in and out. And we can model this. I can show you later. And then we interconnect 3-dimensionally, not only using the ground level, but we connect from bus to the second level that can take you to the ground level of the higher area on the back. Because you have a building that's probably 5 meter or 10 meter behind you that is taller than the first one in the front. And by lifting up the ground, the people can move freely at the base, but also people can move from the second level connection. And this is what we call the 100 to 200 meter radius from the bus station. And then, what also the reason why people don't want to walk in Indonesia? Kenapa orang malas jalan di Indonesia selain panas? Kalau ada motor kenapa enggak gitu kan? Oke, salah satu reason kenapa orang nggak mau jalan. Why people lazy to walk in Indonesia? Sun, hot, rainy. That's the number one. Second one, naik tangga, going to elevation, males. Third, can somebody guess? The quality of the pathway is not good. If we can do the quality, especially if the lady on the hills can walk, it means you're good, right? It means friendly to the asosiasi dengan high heels association. I don't say only women, yeah. It can be men too nowadays. But the number 4, istilah orang Sunda, saya orang Sunda, jempling. Tahu jempling? Gak tahu? Oke, you are Japanese ya. Sepi, senyap, sepanjang jalan gak ada toko-tokonya. Pernah jalan di sepanjang jalan Sudirman, itu 4 km panjangnya. Yang buka toko ke jalannya, the street that opening, the toko, the shop that opening to the street in the whole Sudirman and Tamrin, only 4 buildings. There are hundreds building there, only 4 shops. Mandiri Tower, Sequis Tower, Sampurna, dan satu lagi, only 3. Imagine you walk 2 kilometers without any shop next to you. How many of you been to Singapore? Orchard Road. Orchard Road. You walk, right? From one end to another end. Why? The quality of infrastructure is good. Connection between place to another, especially underground too. Livable because? Okay, but without the Prada shop, the Takashimaya shop, the food stalls, you don't want to walk, right? Because there are more functions that facing the streets and the bridges. This is also another thing about the capital city. We want to liberate the ground, just like the forest, have more monkeys in there, have more squirrels in there, have more rabbit. Oh no, rabbit cannot live there. Have more wild boar to move in there because they have the most dense activity at the ground level. So we need to open the public area to activate the base of the building to make more vibrant, to make more livable, to make more shops. You can go to the bank, you can go to Indomaret, you can go to Gunting Rambut, you can go Mani Pedi, you can go anywhere at the ground level. Okay, what is the difficulty of this? Can you imagine our government building have that? Kementerian Pertanian, ground levelnya apa? What is the base of every ministry building in Indonesia? Except Kementerian BUMN ya, except the state-owned company, state-owned ministry. It's very Lagi sholat. Kita berhenti dulu. Jadi saya lanjut atau gimana? Bukan dari kuliah. Nanti kalau yang dari dulu saya berhenti aja ya. Oke, saya lanjut ya. Okay, I'll continue first. Okay, so in the ministry building usually is isolated by fence. You cannot enter it. That is why Indonesian people don't want to walk around the government area because they are excluded from the ministry. But guess what the ministry is all about? Remember what the president say when during the campaign, especially during the campaign, every president say, "We are here for the people." It means you are to serve the people. And when you serve the people, how come your ministry building doesn't allow people to come in to be served? So the transformation that we want to make in the capital city, this is the idealistic scheme ya Pak, to open the base of the building to be public as possible, as serving the public use. It means it needs to be open to the public without having too much even fence. So this is our aspiration at that time. We don't know whether the government will follow through or not. So this is the architectural expression of the building after that. We have about 6 to 8 story building. The ground level is open, have as much penetration as possible, allowing the green and the wind to pass through. The public function is at the bottom, the semi-public at the second and the third level. The upper level is for the government. We acknowledge the use of the government that is more private. They need to have a lot of secret, a lot of protected data. But it doesn't mean you close from the bottom ground. You can allow the higher floor to be government zone, but the bottom floor and the second and the first can be liberated. And then we also use in the Ministry of Kemenko, we start to use also the terracering of the paddy to be the inspiration of our architectural blocks. Now let's see the manifestation of that into a design ya. Musiknya kayaknya ada tuh. So this is the 4 Kemenko that is undergoing right now. If you can see, the building has a lot of cantilever, a lot of integration between the green and the walkway. The walkway is on the second floor. The base of the ground level is open. People can connect from one to another. There are water, remember the water finger, the green finger and the blue finger. The ground level is also open to public. The connectivity happen on the second and the third floor. We use a lot of openings. We use a lot of shading because we need to reduce the use of the air condition. We use a lot of opening to penetrate the wind to come in. We use a lot of wooden or timber material. And we use also a lot of the sun shading, the facade, to allow, like in the past we have ini ya, apa? Teralis gitu ya, bukan teralis ya. Tritisan atau apa ya? Itu loh Pak, apa? Second skin ya, the second skin usually made from the timber that has the louver, ya, jalousie. So that's also our traditional architecture features that can be used in the modern form. So from that, start to be built like that, and I'll show you later. Do we have more time? You still want to continue to the next level? Ini SKS ke terakhir nih. 4. Bisa Pak? Okay, now this is the last piece of the presentation. After this, all of you can take a certificate. Lulus jadi urban design. This is the most heaviest part though. The first KPI that you saw in the very first slide has all the numbers. It's very specific. 80% public transport, 10-minute city, 2 degrees of temperature reduction, and it's mandated by law. We as a professional, we are not politician ya. We cannot just promise, Pak, 10 menit saya jamin. I can guarantee you 10 minutes if you elect me, right? I can guarantee it's a livable city, pasti bagus. That's not science, that's not us. We are professional, we are academical, we have to be using the tools that are available on our era, using parametric and modeling tools to guide the build forms and how to guide the development of today that also can reach to the future. Because I can tell you, 100% alternative energy is not doable by today's world. We cannot do 100% yet. We are so dependent on the fossil fuels until today. There's also another diabolical situation. Kalimantan don't have hydro. We don't have any big mountain that has a high level of elevation like in Java, where we can do waduk or dam or reservoir. We cannot use geothermal because Kalimantan doesn't have volcano. We don't have wind. The wind is very weak. What is the source of our alternative energy other than nuclear, yeah? Solar. Okay. We can use solar, but can anyone point it to me what is the problem with using solar with my KPI that was given by the president in the first slide? Come on. Many shades. Okay. If I can clear up the sky, no shade, no cloud. You're talking about cloud effect, right? Cloud factors. The cloud is clear. Good. But what is the consequence of solar panel to the other KPI that we have? And guess how big is the solar panel is needed to occupy for a building? One clue. The roof of the one-story building can probably replace the energy need of that building by 60%, 1 story. If we have 14-story or 12-story unit below, the 100% roof surface can only take less than 1 story of the building, one layer of the building. It means if we have 12-story, we are short of 11. Where the energy come from? Where the solar panel goes? The contradiction is, if you need energy from solar, you have to do a solar farm. And the solar farm, we are talking about thousands of hectares, huge amount of solar farm. To create 10 megawatt of energy, we need 1,500 hectares of solar farm. What is the contradiction of the KPI in there? We have 70% green area. They don't talk about solar area. It means when you do a solar farm, you have to cut down the trees, right? So, I don't know the answer to that now, because in this world, our solar efficiency ratio is about that. One surface can only take about 60%. Can the technology go smarter later on? Just like Tesla have the LE, lithium nickel versus the other battery that goes into the kampanye itu, ada kan baterai nickel sama baterai ini gitu kan. So the technology of the battery is already more advanced. Could it be the solar panel can be even better in the future? But I cannot predict that now because the available technology is not there yet. But how can we guide the future knowing that the technology will progress in the future as well? It means we have to guide it using a roadmap. So one of the options is to create urban design guidelines that also performance-based. So this is UDGL. So if that's 6,000 hectares, we divide it into about 17 small area of this. We call it precincts. Each of this is about 250 hectares. Each of this is guided by the principal, guided by how much the density, just like a typical RDTR, yeah, or RTBL. What will be the block massing? Even the block massing also being simulated to match certain behavior of the solar orientation, the wind, the water management, etc. The road system is also being developed that way. Even the pedestrian level, even to the level of the second level connection. So we already not only prescribe, we force the way the building to create this kind of network. Why we can have this network, I can tell you why later on. But we already even put that as a mandatory requirement. So people who come into the capital city, they have to start following these boundaries. They start to following these guidelines. Also, we talk about the fenceless condition, the area that doesn't have fence. We guide also what we call the edge of the building. This is Urban Design Guidelines 101, yeah? So when you do UDGL, this is what you're gonna do usually. We also calculate the drop-off, where the drop-off is, where the parking is, because the one that destroy our city today is the car park and the car access. If you can switch the orientation of the building, putting the car park at the back and putting the building to the front, then you will have more walkable city than compared to our city today. We also have guide how the building relate to the nature, how the building open up using the river at the back. Usually the river at the back in Indonesian city is tempat jemuran, tempat buang sampah, tempat MCK. Kalau lagi nggak punya tempat MCK, sungai itu adalah the backyard of our city, right? In here, the river is the front yard too. So for anybody who want to build in the capital city, they really need to change their paradigm. They need to change the way they work and operate in the city. And we already guide that in what we call the sub-block level. Even to the three-dimensional level, even we already know, even the level, we already know the cut, the typical cut of this. We know how much the difference between one area of another. Which area that require connection, the bridge, the connectivity between the building, and also the language of the guideline itself. And this is the crazy part. For 3 years, each of this book contain one UDGL. That's how many books and how thick the building is that we did for 3 years. So we are not only preparing the master plan, the rendering, the fancy things about the capital city, we guide the city in the very detail. Almost all the 6,000 hectares is already in this table. Tepuk tangannya mana? Sorry. No, this is the sad thing about this is not something to be proud of. Because right now, it's just sitting there in the PUPR office and nobody read it. That's the problem, because it's too complex and it's too comprehensive. Because we think even to the level of this is something that if you guys starting to do parametric modeling, using rhinoceros, using grasshopper, using urban network analysis, this is where the fun part is. We start to do solar radiation. We see, I think, remember the 2 degree, I think Pak Aji this morning asking how to reduce the temperature. It's so hot, it doesn't work. This is where the model of, if you don't put any trees, this is the energy, the radiation, total radiation. And if you put trees, the radiation goes down by 30%. It means your temperature is also will go down. So greenery definitely help to reduce what we call the heat island of the building. We calculate this shadow. Remember, Indonesians don't like to walk under the sun. They like to walk under the shade. So if we can bring the building closer to create shade and shadows, it helps for the pedestrian to walk longer. We also have the wind analysis. We know where the wind direction is on the Kalimantan area, especially this area. We create the contouring modeling to make sure that the building allow the wind to pass through. Remember the green fingers? If we put in water in front of this, the wind not only create breeze, it also reduce the temperature of the surrounding by certain degrees. This is all physics, this is all science. Can we do this in the whole city? If you have a very good computer, interconnected, PS5-nya di-connect 20 biji, can be. But my computer cannot do it. We can only do about 100 hectares. But if the campus has very large capacity of, supercomputer, we can create the whole city with the CFD analysis like this, which, by the way, Singapore has done. Singapore is 56,000 hectares. They completed their CFD analysis island-wide. Island-wide. They use a computer that is provided by Ministry of Defense. Not even the Ministry of Education anymore. So this is the next level of analysis that I open the discussion to all the academia. If you want to take a CFD analysis of all the city area, this is the area of the overlap that we can do, Pak. And this is also another next level thing that we do with the pedestrian. Remember, people will walk if there are better pedestrian quality, better dimension, and also how many, what we call the point of opening ratio to the segment of the street. This is where when we open up more shops and we interconnect the bus station, placing it in the strategic location, we can tell which street that can be more occupied by the pedestrian rather than the other street. So you can predict where people will move. This is where you also can put an effort to ventilate this area, put the shading more, put the distance between the building closer, opening it up. Every little dot in there, it means it's an openable or accessible edge. It means you have McDonald's in here, you have Starbucks, you have Kopi Kulo, you have Gudeg Bujum, gitu ya. So opening in here, if you open it more, people will walk. And this is what the modeling can tell you to create that kind of 10-minute city accessibility point. So we have also even the metrics of what would be the desirable line. and what would be the one that is qualify for the 10 minutes accessibility point or not. And this is the last one. If we already have all this, I think this MOU today, we also talk about the BIM, ya Pak ya. Let's talk about the BIM in the city level. Let's talk about smart dynamic modeling of topography, grade and geology, urban design, smart infrastructure and transportation, all into what we call the dynamic performance-based urban design guidelines. So if we can model all this according to the KPI of this 10 minutes, 80%, 2% temperature reduction, 50, this one is 50% renewable, it has to be 100% now. So all of this can be constantly upgraded, constantly recalibrated to create a very robust city that over the time you can do a roadmap to create what you can achieve. So imagine if everything is already in the digital platform, you can start to populate all this data, and you can create a lot of also IoT using sensor. For example, if the temperature today is 41, if the new building coming giving a shade is already down to 38, and then if you do a little bit of wind corridor, it becomes 36. But then new building coming, blocking the wind, then the temperature goes up again to 40. You can measure it. You can create a KPI that says, okay, this building destroy the performance of the other building. Let's make sure the third building, when they come, doesn't mess it up even more. So you can control the city in your hand because this area can do it. This is where the city can really be different because it has an authorita that has full power to control what's going on in the city. This is not Yogyakarta. Yogyakarta is also special, yeah. Daerah istimewa. But this is not Bandung, where you have to go to a DPR, you have to go through a lot of agency to just look at for data. We can populate the data from the day one, even starting now. So we can create, for example, a roadmap going to 2 degrees reduction, basing on what is the performance of each of the building that coming in different stages of the time. So if it's not doing well, calibrate again and re-enter the target to create a better performance in the next level. That's it, thank you. And one last bonus, you can watch this. So this is not only happening in the theory anymore. This is already happening on the site. So the one that you have the model, the wind, etc., is already starting to happen. Jadi kalau datang ke IKN, ini udah jadi ya. In 3 years. I still remember 3 years ago, all of this still a drawing in my dining table, alone, without any friends. But now we already have it built. And this is ready for 17th of August, National Day. Bisa dicepetin kali ya, enggak ya? Dan nggak ada musiknya, soalnya musiknya ini menyadur dari WPS channel ini nih. Oke, next. Dipencet aja Mbak. Oke, jadi from here to here, not rendering anymore. This is the scary part. From the drawing of this is, again, oh yeah, one little information. We are not building on the primary forest, yeah. We are building on production forest of acacia and eucalyptus, which is the paper trees, which by the way, every 3 to 4 years, they will cut because they need to harvest. So there is a narrative from NASA that's saying that, oh, the capital city destroy the forest. Maybe true, but mostly not true, because if you go back 10 years, you can see they keep cutting it anyway without even having the IKN in there. But the difference is now with the IKN, when we already done, this is the 6,000 hectares that we did. So those books that you see, that nobody read. It's actually a cluster of this that is already being managed and organized based on performance, based on the land uses. But guess what? It's already happening on the ground. So the road is already starting to be cleared. 80% of the road is already there. One way to see it is, yes, it's a good progress, it's according to the plan, but then the others say, oh, you destroy the environment, you're not very sensitive to the nature. But in reality is all of this area, except the riverway, we don't touch. This area is already disturbed to begin with. So I hope that will be the end of it, but I have some discussion point. I prepared already your question. The problem is the implementation. All of this require time, patience, money, because we built in the capital city that has more problem, politically driven timeline. If we rush things, in our industry there are three things that you cannot have all in one place. Quality, time, budget. If you want to have a good quality, you have to have a good time and a good budget. In our political time, we don't have time. We don't have budget. Can we have a good quality? No, right? So I'm not saying we cannot have a good quality here, but we are living in the two conditions that is already very hard to begin with. And then also the now and the future, Pak, that is the problem. The city that we build today, that we are building for tomorrow, is different with what we see today, yeah? The regulation that we see today produce the city that we see today. If you want to have a city that is different, can we stick with the same regulation? No, right? You don't expect feeding somebody peanut and you come up with a princess, right? When you give peanuts, you get monkey. So when you have a regulation that is producing the city that we see today, we will never have another city that is different if we don't change the regulation, if we don't change the way we design the city. Our legal framework today is still limiting us from creating this future city. We don't have the legal platform for that yet. And then, this is the quiz, the last quiz for everyone. After you see this, do you want to move to capital city? Ayo. Siapa yang bapaknya PNS? Di kementerian, ayo. Harus pindah ke IKN. Do you want to move to capital city or not after seeing this? Raise your hand. After 2 hours of the class and all this, nobody want to move? I'm so disappointed. Okay, the one clue that you can tell. Sustainable is not equal to easy and comfortable life. What is easy and comfortable life for all of you? Makan, you want to eat, 10 minutes, Gojek, coming. Right? Supir kemana-mana. AC di mana-mana, air condition. Do you walk? You don't like to walk, right? So if you want to go to this so-called green living, it's not comfortable. I live in Singapore for 7 years. When I come back to Indonesia, I feel like a king, because I can go anywhere I go. I can point to the food that I like, and then the automatic Warung Tegal application give me all the food, right? I can call a driver for a day or a Gojek and take me everywhere I want. I can park wherever I want. It's cheap. In Singapore, everybody walk You have to take public transport, you have to wait for the bus. It's not comfortable, but it's more sustainable. So if you want to be sustainable, think about comfortable, not necessarily the case. So the capital city calls for what I call the warrior. If you want to be a warrior of urban next level of living, we have to talk about the comfortable, whether that's achievable or not. Okay, that's all, Pak.
Thank you very much. I think it was a great lecture. So, any question? Okay, good. Please.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm quite nervous actually.
It's okay.
But maybe to give a quick context, I believe that Indonesia is a very car-centric nation, and I believe that IKN will overcome that issue by having 80% public transportation as one of its goals. But the previous slide also mentioned that IKN will be a medium density cities. But usually in a city that has a quite extensive public transportations, usually the cities are quite compact, quite dense. Maybe cities like New York or maybe Tokyo or maybe some cities in Europe, they are usually described as a city that has a high density. So my question is, how does medium density correlates with the 80% public transportation? How does it relate to each other? And why medium density specifically? Why not high density? Thank you.
Thank you. Very good question. Round of applause for siapa? Okay. Two question.
Oke, terima kasih Pak Sibarani Sofian. Saya mungkin akan menggunakan bahasa Indonesia karena tidak biasa bahasa Inggris. Ya, okay. Intinya itu saya ingin menanyakan mengenai posisi IKN sekarang ini terhadap ibu kota kita yang lampau, yaitu DKI Jakarta. Nah, apakah posisi IKN ini akan menggantikan ibu kota negara kita yang lama, Jakarta, sehingga biar Jakarta itu seperti dibiarkan sebagai nekropolis yang tenggelam jadi Atlantis dan sebagainya, atau dia itu sebagai pembagi bebannya Jakarta. Misalnya Jakarta terlalu padat, kemudian sebagian bebannya itu diambil alih oleh IKN. Nah, jadi sebenarnya posisinya IKN ini di mana? Apakah dia akan menggantikan atau membagi beban dari ibu kota kita yang lampau? Terima kasih.
Okay, thank you. Applause for the question. Dua dulu ya.
Yeah,
Okay.
Please.
The first question, spot on. Thank you very much. You are paying attention to the lecture. Selamat. Tepuk tangan lagi buat dia. Siapa namanya, Mas? Abran. Okay, Abran. So, the short answer to that, if I can afford high density, I will. It is better, for sure. But the issue with that is the soil condition of our capital city limits the development of the high rise. At least the preliminary geological findings, Pak. They say the maximum is about 18. I'm not geologist. I cannot say otherwise whether or why not more or not. But the more dense, the more higher rise of the building, the more costs that you have to bear to go through the deep penetrated ground. For example, we cannot use pancang. Pancang itu apa ya bahasa Inggrisnya? Normal piles. We have to do bore piles. We have to drill piles, which is more expensive, which is also longer. Yeah, because the soil condition, we have clay shell, and the clay shell If it's exposed to the air or water, it will start to disintegrate. It means we can only use bore pile. It means it's also costlier. And the second answer to also your question is, when we start with 12, the market doesn't respond to 12. If you ask the question of, is this a government city that is built by the government, or is it also using private money? Because if it's a private money, they need to go through what we call a feasibility stage. Is it feasible to go 3.5 hours or 3 hours away from Java to go to in the middle of the jungle to live in an apartment of 40 story, for example? Right? Even for you, if you have a choice to live in the downtown of Yogyakarta, but live in an apartment, small space, very narrow, very cosmopolitan, but the price of the houses is more expensive than buying a house in the suburb, 1 to 2 story, only 1 story or 2 story, less density but cheaper. The market doesn't respond that way. So the difficulty of the other one, other than the government houses, the government houses is a very niche market. The government will force the government employee to move to wherever they want. For example, move to 50-story towers. It's a mandate. It's perintah dari pekerjaan. You have to do it. But if you have a market preference, open market, I choose not to go to the higher one. I choose to go to the lower one because it gives me more value over money, for example. So the logic of the density has to be balanced with the logic of the market. That's also another biggest challenge of the capital city, Pak. 80% of, right now, 70% of the KIPP is government. It's only 30% private. But on the other town, remember we only do the first one, we have another 8 towns. The other towns is the other way around. 80% private, 20% government. It means there are more cities that is like Yogyakarta or Bandung or Bogor who really have the market preference. And the market preference is not going high rise. Why would you go to another part of the island to live in an apartment? That's the mentality that has the problem, that we cannot overcome. So that's one other challenges. I hope I can answer you on that. Okay, thank you. Your name? Dwi. Okay. Pakai bahasa Indonesia aja ya. Capek loh saya. Oke, jadi Jakarta tetap menjadi pusat yang seperti apa? Seperti Jakarta minus pemerintahan saja. Jadi yang akan diangkat tuh hanya fungsi pemerintahannya. Supaya apa? Supaya Jakarta berkurang salah satu beban. Karena Jakarta itu kota yang terbebani dengan hampir semua aspek yang ada dalam kehidupan kita. Sekolah ada di situ, best university in Jakarta, best hospital in Jakarta, best doctors in Jakarta, mau nonton konser di Jakarta, mau cari kuliner di Jakarta, mau bikin convention terbesar di Jakarta, government ada di Jakarta. Is an over capacity town. So by lifting one, it helps, but I can guarantee it's not going to solve the problem. Jakarta has 11 million. The government official that live in Jakarta, together with their family, it's only about 500,000. Even if we take the business that's related to the government, it's only 1 million. It's only 1 out of 11. And 11 is the official population. The reality is, by day population, is 34 million. So it's actually insignificant. Your 1 million people of government relocated, it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't affect much. Only it helps to reduce the annoyance of, ini loh, kalau zaman saya itu, si Komo mau lewat. Kalau generasi saya tuh si Komo mau lewat. Artinya government official tuh kan pakai four rider ya. Lewatin busway, diterabas, apa-apa sembarangan. Jalan macet di sok bisa terbang sendiri gitu kan. Nah yang kayak gituan gak ada. Akan berkurang secara signifikan. But it doesn't help Jakarta dari masalah kebanjirannya. It doesn't help Jakarta from the land subsidence. It doesn't help Jakarta from the sea level rise. It doesn't help Jakarta from flooding. 500.000 sampai 1 juta is not gonna save Jakarta. Tetapi official address of the government is gonna be in Nusantara. The diplomats will go back to Nusantara karena ada peraturan yang menyatakan perwakilan negara internasional di suatu daerah satu negara tertentu harus di ibu kotanya, bukan di Jakartanya, kecuali ASEAN. ASEAN itu sekretariatnya Jakarta, bukan Indonesia. Sekretariat Jakarta, ASEAN itu Jakarta for the next 1 year. Next year enggak, saya enggak tahu. Tapi kalau nanti dipilih lagi, mungkin kembali ke Jakarta lagi. Jadi there are certain things that can stay in Jakarta, but most of the government function will move to capital city. Jadi jangan anggap capital city itu seperti obat mustajab yang semuanya akan membereskan masalah Jakarta. It's not gonna help. Kira-kira gitu.
Oke, thank you Pak. Sedikit aja, saya mengunjungi ibu kota baru, Naypyidaw Pak. Naypyidaw di Naypyidaw.
Myanmar.
Moga-moga nanti ke depan tidak seperti Naypyidaw ya, karena yang tinggal di sana itu hanya ya embassy staf-staf embassy ada di sana, kemudian seluruh kementerian ada di sana, anak-anaknya semua masih tinggal di Jakarta. Tapi saya yakin di Yangon. Tapi saya yakin dengan desain Pak Sibarani, karena kenapa beliau menang? Salah satunya adalah bisa menyelesaikan kontradiksi. Jadi poin pertama dari presentation adalah resolving the contradiction. Ini sebenarnya tugas nanti Pak yang semester ini. Salah satunya adalah membuat ide yang agak ekstrim, banyak kontradiksi tapi harus diselesaikan. Dan moga-moga dengan paparan ini akan menjadi lebih banyak inspirasi selain metodologi untuk solving contradiction yang akan kita berikan. Oke, saya tidak mau menahan terlalu lama karena sudah dikode beberapa orang untuk segera menyelesaikan. Terima kasih banyak. Kita aplaus yang besar dong. Oke. Untuk Pak Sibarani.
Oh, pertanyaan yang mengenai kuliah ya Pak ya?
Iya, satu lagi sebenarnya itu.
Oke.
Sebenarnya ada satu request foto bareng ini, Wavy dari sana, tapi mungkin sambil persiapan bisa dijawab dulu soal dari pertanyaan.
Sebetulnya saya menggunakan topi sebagai ketua IARKI ya, Ikatan Ahli Rancang Kota Indonesia. Tadi saya juga bicarakan di depan, sebetulnya kami sebagai ikatan asosiasi sangat mengundang teman-teman untuk masuk ke profesi urban designer. Sangat mengundang, dan kita punya 554 kota kabupaten. Anggota kami hari ini hanya 800 yang professionally, yang mendaftar, yang mempunyai latar belakang S2 urban design atau bekerja di bidang urban design.
Kalau S1 gimana? Kira-kira peluangnya atau kapasitasnya bisa ditingkatkan dengan cepat?
Sebetulnya gini, yang diperlukan adalah pengalaman bekerjanya. Nah, jadi kalau 10 tahun, saya lulus 2099 Pak. Saya lulus 99 S2, mengambil S2 urban design itu dengan resiko saya bisa kerja nggak ya? Karena waktu itu menjadi urban designer itu hanya segelintir.
Marketnya sempit ya?
Marketnya sempit sekali dan harus dengan pemerintah. Tetapi sekarang sudah terbuka lebar, jadi sebetulnya sudah sangat berbeda masanya. Tetapi gini, bedanya pengalaman bekerja 2 tahun di arsitektur dengan pengalaman bekerja 2 tahun di urban design, berbedanya adalah gini, kalau kita membangun itu kira-kira 16 bulan ya, 18 bulan sampai 12 sampai 18 bulan. Kalau bangunannya salah, kalau Anda arsitek yang ternyata ngawur, ketahuan dalam 1,5 tahun, oh salah. Moga-moga masih di studio ya. Jadi salahnya digambar, bukan setelah dibangun, widih salah. Tapi kita belajar dari kesalahan kita. Nah, urban design Kecuali di IKN yang cuma 3 tahun jadi, tadi kan udah kelihatan tuh plazanya. Silahkan dikritik ya, plazanya Pak Sibarani ngawur ternyata ngaco gitu. Saya bisa tahu salahnya apa. Tapi IKN ini once in the blue moon. Pembangunan urban design itu membutuhkan waktu 5, 10, 15 tahun. Nah, jadi faktor pengalamannya menurut saya sih harus segera dikejar. Jadi kalau sudah lulus, cari pekerjaan di firma-firma yang mengerjakan urban design, master planning, ikutin terus pengalaman untuk mengetahui salah dan benarnya urban design itu sedikit lebih lama dibanding teman-teman arsitektur atau interior. Jadi bekal ilmunya monggo silakan di S1, tapi pengalamannya harus ya konsekuensinya pengalamannya masih harus lebih dikejar. Karena pengalaman di urban design itu nggak secepat di arsitektur Pak, kira-kira demikian.
Terima kasih banyak. Ini ada request untuk selfie bareng. Gimana teknisnya? Kita tutup dulu atau oke, baik, terima kasih banyak Pak Sibarani untuk apa yang sudah disampaikan, sharing, sangat menginspirasi teman-teman ya, dan semoga banyak juga yang tertarik dengan apa yang sudah dilakukan dan cukup ada yang berani untuk datang ke sana. Karena juga dibutuhkan banyak arsitek-arsitek baru untuk membangun sekian banyak dan tentunya dengan asosiasi dengan well established company yang ditugasi di sana ya, karena mungkin tendernya beda Pak ya. Cara tendernya beda untuk milih arsitek. Oke, sekali lagi terima kasih banyak. Big applause dulu dong sebelum kita selfie. Oke, selfie bareng. Ya, kita ada sana. Enggak, tolong dari sana aja. Panitia. Biar kelihatan semua.
Mungkin teman-teman mahasiswa bisa merapat ke tengah ya.
Sini, maju.
Bisa maju, bisa merapat ke tengah.
Merapat ke sini, merapat.
Lagi. Maju.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Ya, semuanya masuk.
Ya, thank you so much. Mungkin foto sekali lagi ya Bapak dari tengah. Iya. Yeah, thank you so much, Pak Sibarani, for the presentation. Please, once again, give a round of big applause for Pak Sibarani. Yeah, thank you so much. Semoga ilmunya dapat bermanfaat untuk teman-teman mahasiswa arsitektur UI. Akhir kata, Fanya tutup. Apabila ada salah kata, mohon dimaafkan. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.